Hi everyone. Hope you had a great lunch. And every day, more than 3 billion people have access to internet. And with that in mind, we need to create more accessible and more usable apps for them to use. And of course, you don't want your users to behave like this when they come to your site or application. And that's why we have our empty state, or our hero. And watch out there. And so today we're going to talk about how to turn zeros to heroes. But before we start, I would just like to quickly introduce myself. And I work as designer, or front-end designer, or UI developer. I don't know what's the exact title today. And in Mono, so it's a company based in Osijek. And there we have a lot of opportunities to work on different projects and implement empty states, of course, during our every project. Also, co-organizer of Frontend Meetup Osijek, which is monthly meetup of front-end developers and designers. And this was the first year that we did Digital Design Academy in Osijek, which is a way of boosting our local design community. And I think it helped a lot for a lot of people who were involved in this. Also, I'm foodie, so that's why I'm editor at Taste of Croatia. And also, last but not least, I have a young apprentice, 4 years old, and her name is Leila. So let's get back to empty states. So what exactly are an empty states? Probably the first thing to start with. Empty state is something that our users see when they come to our application. So when they sign up or when they first time visit our app, and on some places that need to have some sort of actions on that screen. So for example, this one is Atlassian Onboarding empty state, which shows to the users how app works and what exactly does this app is for. This would be an empty state for sign up. So actually, something that user sees when they first sign up to this application and where there's no data to show. Success, also one of the best empty states, I presume, since we all like to see our tasks finished and over. And of course, 404, or error empty state. So this one is by Croatian Mountain Rescue Service, and it's like interactive, and it's really great a way of showing design through empty state. Next, we have like activity empty state, which is something that shows us that our activity stream is empty. So there are a lot of empty states, and I didn't want to go through all of them because there's a large amount of actions that can occur in our application, and it probably the empty states are like something that we need to create custom for our app. Importance of empty state are really they can be a crucial part of our UX. So depending on existence of our empty state, users can permanently leave our application or temporarily if they're into some 50 Shades of Grey probably stuff, and leave and be tortured, stay and be tortured. And the other thing is that, of course, if we have an empty state, that means that our users will be more engaged, productive, and create more stuff in our application, more actions, more tasks. And actually, our application will continue to live based on their inputs. The one thing that I found out during creation of this presentation is a great quote by Benjamin Brendel, which said that useful empty states tells users what is it something, why they're seeing it, and how they can fill that up. And for me, these three questions actually sums up the empty states. And if you're designing, or if you're a developer, front-end or back-end, if you have any contact with this part of UI, then it's also interesting to just remember these three words, and based on that, create an empty state. So now I'm going to show you how some empty states, how can you implement this kind of pattern. So this one is a paper by Dropbox, and of course this one is fake. But I created it just to show how many developers and designers leave their empty states. So for user, this is like dead end. And when someone or you would came to this page and saw something like that, it would be like disaster since you don't know what else. What should you do? And of course, this one would be original. And you can see that Dropbox really created awesome experience by following this pattern of which shows that user is in the folders section or in the folders page. Why they're seeing it? Because, of course, here you can keep your files organized and so on. And how can you fill up that empty state? By clicking on Create a Folder button. And the interesting thing here is that you can see this button for Sample Folder, which actually helps a lot of new users to start using folders just by simply clicking Sample Folder, which generates one folder for them without their need to input any information. So another example is by Everybo. It's a design collaboration tool or platform which also follows the same pattern. We're going to talk about personality just in a second, and we also see that this empty state follows the same rules and tells us what is this some screen that you can create your first project. The other one is why, because you'll be able to upload your designs, communicate, and collaborate on them. And how? By clicking a button, of course. Yeah. So the important thing with empty states is also that you need to have in mind when you're designing an empty state that they should be they should follow your brand guidelines or your product design. So try not to strip your empty states from personality and delight. And of course, try to communicate simple and clear design. One of the also most important things with designing empty states is that we create great and simple and clear copy. So we don't want to write, I don't know, 5 sentences in empty state, since no one will read it. And that's why we need to communicate it really, really, really simple. Of course, as I mentioned, designing within our visual identity is something that is recommended for empty states. Creating an emotion in user is also one way of creating an empty state. So, for example, if you used Viber, or probably using it, you can see that this cat has some emotional connectivity with users who are using it. So it's curious, it's waiting for something, it's a bit funny, and it's actually established some connection with the user. And on the other side, you can see Google Hangouts with their mascot, which cries. And it's a bit like, from my point from my subjective view, I'm not sure would I use empty state. For me, it's a bit negative connotation. So probably most successful empty state is MailChimp's empty states, which in the first one, like shows a red button, which almost every time is communicating some kind of warning. You can see the sweat. Does anyone know the name of this monkey? No? They have a name for the monkey. And so you can see that this, underneath, this is your moment of glory. Press the button, you know, and everything. And on the right, the interesting thing happened when they introduced this high five. So after you send the campaign, then you get this animated high five from this monkey. And the people actually tweeted this image, like they were like high-fiving the screen and then take a photo and then put it on Twitter. And you know, it was like really win for MailChimp and their design team when they created this empty state. The thing that I also found out in the last moments when I created this presentation, I realized, you know, that all the time we have empty states involved in our life by success messages, error messages, and in our notifications are also some sort of empty state, since they can articulate some visual elements through sound. And Facebook just released, I don't know, a few months ago, their sound kit, and if you look at these last 3 columns, they all have sort of empty state actions. So we have the success, we have errors, we have notifications, and this all works without even looking at our phone or our screen. So the other thing I think you'll recognize is this one. And probably, you know, you come home, you turn on your computer, you just leave, and then after, when it boots 5 minutes, then you hear that sound which said, you know, your Skype's alive. Also, empty states are not just something beautiful, and our copy is not just something that is well crafted, but education is like the primary goal of our empty states. So we need to explain user, as I said, what's going on, where is he, and what will occur when they click on some button. You know, we need to explain them why the house or some bomb won't go in the North Korea, and you know, stuff like that. So we need to do it really fast, since nobody likes, you know, to open their phone or open their new installed app and look for and read some like article empty state. We need to educate them in a simple way, so not too complex, and of course, as I said, our empty states really produce more engagement, more productivity, and we can create all that by following this, as I wrote down, like Holy Trinity of empty states. And if you have that in mind, really, then everything else will click together. So if you follow these 3 simple rules whenever you're designing something, or if you're not designing, if you're just a developer who implements stuff, then you really should consider using this and not just leave a blank screen, since that can be a practice in developers' world, as I experienced this. Of course, we should delight them with design. We also should create pixel-perfect illustrations. We should create beautiful color palettes and all other stuff. Maybe animate our empty states. This is like micro interactions are now really a thing, and I think that with some animated empty states, we can also show a lot to the people who are using our app. Education, as I mentioned on the slide before, educate them. They will be more happy. They will use your app more, and we should do it really simple, really fast. So that's the thing about empty states. I'm hoping that you learned something new about empty states, that it will help you in your next project. To if you already didn't include your empty states in the project, you really should consider doing that. You can also do that before designers create an empty state if you're a developer, and just to ease things up, because maybe sometimes on those screens, which can be complex if you're creating some sort of dashboard apps or platforms or large software solutions, then maybe a developer could explain better what's going on just by writing a simple text and answering to these three questions. So that's it from empty states. And I hope that you have questions. So I would like to hear. I left some room for questions, and I would like to hear them.
Questions. Okay, brave people. Someone over there, keep your hand up.
Yo. Hey, a quick one. Did you do any A/B testing? Like, what happens if you have a really, let's say, empty state versus if it's cool?
What means empty?
I mean, say Dropbox folders.
Okay.
If it's just a stupid button that says make folder, that's it. Just giving you the most basic interaction without any of the explanation or anything, versus having a nice graphic explanation, blah, 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 blah. Is there any...
So what I think about that was a question.
No. Do you have empirical evidence that one is better than the other?
No, I don't have exact. I read articles related on that, and everyone agreed that users like to at least see a sentence which stated what they are looking at and what will happen if they click on some button. So if they make a folder, but what will happen with that folder? It will just stay around, or you can do something with it. That's the difference.
Okay, second question over here.
Familiar face.
Hi, Michael.
Hi.
How would you approach lack of time while developing some app, or lack of time dedicated to the design part of the app when you don't have the dedicated time to do it and you have to do some kind of an empty state? Would you leave it completely empty? Would you sacrifice some other part of design to have room for designing empty states? Or do you think it's a crucial part for the design, or some kind of an added delight on top of everything?
Yeah, as I said, I think it could be a crucial part of user experience. And I think that empty states are really, of course, not everyone wants to draw illustrations, and you don't have to create this personal touch to empty state. But explaining what's going on the screen doesn't require like more than maybe 5 minutes. I think that everyone can find 5 minutes per screen to just write down what empty state is about. So I would always try to create an empty state, and if I don't have time for this personality part, I would maybe try to create it sometimes in future. Yeah.
More questions? Okay, in the back. Meanwhile, while I walk over here, who's designed an empty state before? Have you guys done that? Show of hands.
Yeah. How many people are designers here? Developers? Okay. How many developers actually have tried to create an empty state? Okay. Designers? Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so my question is, one of the examples that you've shown is actually kind of a 3-step onboarding to the tool. So would you say that the same rules apply, or is there something else that you would add that we need to think about when we actually design and create the whole onboarding process into the tool and not just the empty state for a specific page or functionality?
So how to separate actually these two things? You mean?
Yeah, and are there some other rules or other things that we should consider when we create the whole onboarding to the tool and to the whole experience, in opposed to the just blank state
Empty state. Well, onboarding can be a bit tricky since a lot of people just skip onboarding process. These 3 screens that we just saw in this example. But I think maybe that's a thing with the power users. And what we see, and what we like to do is just, I'll just skip that. I don't mind, what's that, what writes on the empty states in the onboarding process. Since, I already read about this app, but people who are just not that much of power users, I think that they need to see onboarding empty states. And I think that they're like almost have the same importance, but empty states exactly on the screens are a bit maybe are more important than onboarding process, if that fits your answer. Question.
Last question. Who's it going to be? I'll pick you.
Here.
In the front.
Hi.
Hi.
Just a simple question. Do you think empty states could be over-designed and distracting to the user?
Can they be, or are they?
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, like every design, you can over-design things. No one likes to see like empty state, which is over designed with millions of informations on that. For example, image. If we use illustration, we shouldn't go too far with illustrations. We want to keep it simple and clean, since users will get too distracted with our design, personality, and maybe they'll lose some time in actually creating an action on that screen. So I think that you can over-design empty states, just as you can over-copy them with text. Yeah. So that's it.
Thanks again to Mihael, Tomić.
Thank you.